Good evening. This is another installment of Legislative Update. My name is Peter Tassi, and with me, of course, is House Speaker Robert DeLeo.
Hello, Peter.
How you
nice
doing,
to
Bobby?
see you. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since we did our last show.
Yeah,
But hopefully we'll do a little more frequent.
yeah.
One thing I want to talk about right now is opioids. You are, it's going to sound wrong, an advocate for helping people with that addiction. What has the present budget done for opioids?
Well, not only did we do something in the budget, we did a separate piece of legislation, and it's been the third piece of legislation that since I've been speaker in any sense. And I will tell you that the good thing is that Massachusetts is considered as one of the leaders in the country in terms of fighting opioid abuse. You know, having had the opportunity to speak to people who are suffering with this disease, who are fighting this disease, the reception that I get from them is that, you know, they're so greatly appreciative of what we have done. Having said that, we still have a long way to go. And I think it's going to require action in each and every budget we do, and we're going to have to keep on doing legislation. I think in particular in this year, we hit upon a couple of issues, more police training and intervention in terms of opioid abuse, more availability of Narcan, to obviously, in many cases, save the lives from those who have had an overdose. We've increased facilities and we've increased some of the benefits in terms of those with substance abuse and mental health illness as well. And we talked about and educate people relative to the alternatives to non-opioids as a possibility for treatment as well. So just last week I took a visit to the Boston Medical Center, wherein they're probably one of the busiest, I think they are the busiest facility in Massachusetts and probably New England, and probably even further than that relative to fighting opioid abuse and dealing with some of the patients. And again, they were very hopeful with some of the changes that we made, some of the additions we made, some of the tools that we've given them to help people. And so hopefully we're going to continue in that path.
Okay, let's get away from that to something, shall we say, a little more pleasant. The Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
You went to spring training.
Their wins, yeah.
Now you possibly have the ability to go to the World Series.
I don't know. I'd love to.
Lucky you.
But had the ability to throw out the first pitch in one of the games. Yeah, it's been an unbelievably, you know, obviously exciting time. I think that everyone in New England right now is really focused on them, especially with the start of the Patriots, which hasn't been so good. But it's a long season, so I'm sure they'll turn it around too. But one of the things that was interesting in terms of Massachusetts was the Pawtucket Red Sox coming to Worcester.
That's the reason I brought the Red Sox out. So I figured you'd go into that subject.
Yes, and again, that was another visit I made recently, was to Worcester to talk to the Worcester Chamber of Commerce. Former Lieutenant Governor Tim Murray is the president of the Worcester Chamber out there, does a great job and was very instrumental, along with obviously the governor, and in particular, I think Jay Ash from the governor's office, a familiar name to a lot of folks, as he's former city manager in Chelsea. They're just so enthusiastic about, they call themselves the Wolf Sox right now. I'm not sure if that's going to stick. But two things. First of all, my love of baseball. Obviously, it's great that they're in the process of building a new stadium. Will be in the process of building a new stadium. And I think it's going to be great for the economy of the state, and in particular for Worcester. I think that people there are so enthusiastic about it. the state is going to, be involved relative to some infrastructure, but everything else will be privately paid for. I'm very enthusiastic about it. I'm not so sure if the people from Rhode Island are that excited. I can tell you that at the recent speakers conference, I did not joke around with the speaker from Rhode Island at all about it, because I could tell he didn't want to talk about it. But I think it's going to be great. I had just a one day, I went there, spoke about that, then I visited that new casino,
Springfield?
MGM
Yep.
in Springfield, which they did a marvelous job. Marvelous in the sense that you unless you knew it was a casino, the ornate feeling of a casino wasn't there. It blended very well into Springfield, and when you walk inside, there's a lot of things to remind you of Springfield.
I was to a restaurant just around the corner from where the casino is, and just seeing it being put together. It's a massive building.
It is. It's a massive building, and most importantly, I think it's going to provide, in addition to the people who work there, the people that built some 3,000 jobs. And that's what was my major initiative in talking about expanded gaming here in Massachusetts, was the jobs that would provide. And Springfield has gone through some tough times. They got a great mayor out there, Mayor Sano, and great representation up on Beacon Hill and whatnot. But I think it's going to be a big economic boost for the people of Springfield, and most importantly, provide jobs.
Now, Belle Isle had a walking path, or Winthrop had a walking path. It's been extended. And matter of fact, in Sunday's, the 23rd, Globe, they had, I don't know if you saw this.
Yep.
It's a nice write-up of what that new walk consists of and how it connects with the one that Winthrop already has.
Right. That connects all the way to the Short Beach,
Yeah.
actually. And that, what was really wonderful about that is that, people talk about the density of the town and that we do not have much green space here, which I guess we can't deny. But what green space we do have, I think it's important that we keep, obviously, and that we enjoy, and that we learn from. And that's what this is. And that's what this is all about. Through state grants, and we're able to put this together. There was an event that we had for the grand opening. The Lieutenant Governor came, DCR Commissioner came, Senator Boncory came, Ron Vecchia and Jim Lettieri were there from the Town Council. It was just, it even received WBZ News even came. And obviously, I guess the Boston Globe was there as well. What was bittersweet, I guess you say, about it is their new pavilion there that they named in honor of Mary Kelly. And for anyone who knew Mary Kelly, I can tell you since my days as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I'm not sure if there's anyone who worked harder relative to conservation issues in the town as did Mary. So it was only appropriate that they named that pavilion after her. The interesting, or the not so nice part about it was that, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 days later or so, it was that close that she had passed. She passed away. I talked to her daughter, actually, because I didn't know Mary was ill. I knew she's had some health issues in the past, but not to the point of taking her life. And her daughter had told me no, that she had died peacefully, I guess, in her sleep and whatnot. So I think it was wonderful that before she died that she had the opportunity, for everyone there to thank her for her years of service. And Barbara will tell you the Friends of Belle Isle Marsh were there, and we had Joanne McKenna, a counsel from Revere, who was there as well, and so many people who just genuinely wanted to be there for Mary. Well, and so as a, as she passed, hopefully before she died, she had a nice memory of that day,
It's a
because
tribute.
she was amazing.
It's
She
a
was
tribute to her.
just, you know, and I said that in my remarks, that she just, you know, when I was a selectman to when I was a representative to Speaker of the House, she would talk to me on environmental issues. It didn't matter. She called them as she saw them. And that's what was the wonderful thing about Mary. Her main objective was to make sure, you know, the people of the town were protected.
Bob, last show we had, we were talking prior to the budget going into effect. We're talking, excuse me, how the House and the Senate would talk together and come up with a proposed budget. The budget now is passed. What is in there that would directly affect Winthrop Revere?
Well,
Or other communities too, but
yeah, I think there are some things, obviously, I think you know, when you talk about other communities, you can talk about historic amounts of funds that have been put in for the state in local aid, in terms of education funding. In addition to that, I was able to get into the House, and then Senator Boncory into the Senate, you know, money for the so-called child safety grants, which I think the police chief would tell you have been important aspect and of assistance, especially in these times, especially with what's going on with shootings in schools and the like. Money for both the Winthrop and Revere Chamber of Commerce so that they can both highlight, you know, businesses coming into our communities. The money for directed state police patrols for Winthrop and Revere, although Revere Beach, you know, with the eateries and drinking places, obviously probably use it more there. Money for CAPIC, really to help really those who need it most in our towns. Recently, for instance, there was a terrible fire in Revere. I know most of the talk has been around what's happened in Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover relative to the gas explosions, but Revere also had a terrible fire.
I think that was Franklin Street, if I remember.
Franklin's right. And I think some 100 people were displaced. And again, because of the money that we got for CAPIC, you know, those folks were able to get some assistance. In addition to that, you know, I can tell you that money for those fighting substance abuse in both communities was passed. And one of the major priorities which I've had the last couple of years and continue to have this year was money for early education, which is not only obviously for Winthrop and Revere, but as mentioned earlier, you know, throughout the state. Statistics have shown overwhelmingly the importance of early education in a child's life, you know, in the future. First of all, obviously, in terms of how well they may, you know, they may do going on to college if they so choose. But what's amazing about it, the most amazing statistic is that polls have shown that children who have early education are less likely to commit crime than those who don't. So for all of these reasons, the state has been making a major investment in early education, and if there are problems that children may have, it was amazing to me that here that some children were not allowed to get early education because of discipline problems or whatnot. Well, a child who's that young, you know, there may be some other issues involved. Behavioral issues, not substance abuse issues, but mental health issues and whatnot. So hopefully they can get the assistance that they need at an early age, so that, you know, we can attack it and treat it then, as opposed to turning out to be a much bigger problem when they get older.
Now, one issue that is very important, and that's firefighters. Them being able to get sick benefits caused by their job. I hate saying it that way, but it's the truth. What is there available to them?
This was the most. This was ranked as their most important issues. Unfortunately, it's interesting to note, despite all the progress we've made relative to helping firefighters in terms of some of their equipment and the like, in terms of their protection, obviously we've come a long way. But with the various chemicals and flame retardants that have come on board also, with that has come the possibility of firefighters contracting cancer. And this is an issue which we have addressed before and provided firefighters with, monies to protect them and their families as a result of them contracting cancer. But it wasn't a full benefit in the sense that they would have to take time and may not get paid for some of their days that they took off for treatment, both men and women that we put in our bill. So this gives them the ability to obtain further benefits. So should they need to get further treatment or treatment while they're being cared for, that now those benefits will be part of the package that'll be afforded to them.
That's good. Environmental. There's a bond issue.
We passed a $2.4 billion so-called environmental bond bill. I think one of the major issues that's obviously affecting us, not only, we probably see it more, I was just going to say not only around here, but probably more in those areas that are closest to the water with the climate change. What's interesting to note is that in talking to the fire chiefs in both communities and police chiefs in both Winthrop and Revere, it appears as though the latest storms that have come about haven't been so much a problem with the ocean. I think some of the job that they've done and the renourishment of both Winthrop and Revere Beach has helped immensely, by the way. But it seemed to be more on the bay side. And that to me tells me that there's something going on, relative to the issue of climate change that is going on. So this bill talks about the importance of providing funds for resiliency for communities throughout the Commonwealth. But I think we here in Winthrop and in Revere, because of our being surrounded so much by water, can be the major beneficiaries of that. In addition to that, the environmental bond bill also talked about refurbishing of some of the parks. I know Coughlin Playground, for instance, in Winthrop, and the other in playground in Revere as well. I'm trying to remember the Fredericks Park in the city of Revere as well. Address some of the issues relative to seawalls and the like. So for us here, especially environmental bond bills, not that it's not important in any other part of the state, don't misunderstand me, but especially for us here, I think there's a real consideration for what's going on, the changes, the environment, and the ability to give the tools to our cities and towns to fight back.
What's this I hear about a fishing pier at Deer Island?
Well, that's been something which has been talked about. I know that there was somewhat of a contentious hearing that they had. Councilor LeConte had put it together to let people know, let people sound out in terms of what their issues were. I think the biggest problem that people had was the issue of public safety, in particular, of people using roads to come in and out and making sure that the people of the town were protected. I just spoke to the police chief not too long ago about it, and Fred Lasky from the MWRA, and it appears like they're in the works of putting together a plan to make sure that the area will be properly protected, you know, during all times that the fish pier is used.
Now, November 6th is the state elections. Everyone in the state got this little pamphlet. It's regarding the questions. There's 3 questions, primary questions. Now, I don't want your opinion if it's good, bad, or what the pros and cons are. I just want you to explain, like question 1, you see commercials on TV, vote yes, vote no. What would be the no? What would be the yes?
Well, first of all, as a result of the questions, some of the things that we did pass, so some questions were avoided. The so-called $15 minimum wage that we passed, the Family Leave Act, which we passed, the extension of the permanent sales tax holiday that we have each and every August to make that permanent in law. So those will not be questions, but I just wanted to point out those could have been questions.
Well,
For instance, question 1 right now has to do with nurses and in nurse-patient ratio. The Mass Nurses Association, which supports it, feels that there should be a minimum requirement that so many nurses attend to each patient or each floor, or whatever it may be, so that no nurse is faced with a situation where there may be one nurse for, I don't know, 4 patients, 5 patients, whatever it may be. Those in opposition in particular, I think some other nurses associations are opposed to it. In addition, I think the Mass Hospital Association is primarily opposed to it. What they're saying is that you can't be regimented in terms of how many nurses, that it's too fluid a situation, and that they don't like government telling them what to do in terms of how many nurses are needed for each particular part of a hospital. They also make the statement that this will, could cost millions and millions of dollars for health care. And with that, they're concerned that hospitals may be forced, some smaller hospitals, to close. And what some hospitals provide for services right now would probably have to be eliminated if this passes. So both sides make very, very strongly, but that's what question 1 is all about.
So
the folks who I presume are going to continue to see probably more on that question probably than even the candidates.
well, the only reason I'm bringing that up is because that affects everyone. It's not you versus me. It's
No.
you and I.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a big question.
Yes.
That's a big question.
Right.
Okay.
That is a big question. Question 2 revolves around the fact of the so-called Citizens United decision that came down, allowing corporations, to make contributions. And in particular, what this is saying is that corporations shouldn't be considered as individual citizens in the usual sense, and that therefore this just calls for a commission, if I'm correct on this, to take a look at whether the money that candidates are receiving is, properly being if candidates' elections are being properly funded, put it that way. And they call upon Massachusetts, and I think probably each state in the country is probably going to get this question, to set up a commission to take a look at what effect money is having, and corporate money in particular is having, on election.
Now,
The third one
yeah,
is the transgender.
non-discriminatory.
Non-discriminatory. And I'd have to say this is one piece of legislation which I had supported and co-authored, as a matter of fact, to stop discrimination against transgender individuals here in Massachusetts. Discrimination in the sense of, you know, their use of any public facilities and whatnot, you know, restaurants and the like, that they could not be discriminated against.
The prime reason I'm bringing this up is because we want people to go out and vote November 6th. If you want to vote, excuse me, yes or no on question 1, 2, or 3, that's your choosing.
Right,
All right,
in
that's
the
the main
booklet
thing.
here put out by Secretary of State Galvin, as you showed earlier, I think just about, well, everyone should have received this, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot more discussion about that before Election Day, and I'm sure whether online or in newspapers, TV and radio, whatever it may be, people should pay attention and make sure that they look at it.
Before we close the show, it's time, this time of year, every year, Women's Forum, Breast Cancer Walk. Now, I know Breast Cancer Walk is September 30th.
Right, so
So
people may
by the
not
time
see
people
this.
see this, it may have already gone.
Right, but I will just say that breast cancer obviously continues to be a major health issue, although for both men and women, primarily women, and we usually have a large contingent of people both from Winthrop and Revere who attend. I provide buses for them right into the Esplanade, and we'll continue to do that this year. So by the time we come back next time, hopefully I'll have a good report to give you on that.
The Women's Forum.
October 10th is the Women's Health Forum, which will be held at Winthrop High School this year. You know, well, we first of all, again, Barbara Bishop, who everyone knows, I think, pretty well, puts this together, does an unbelievable job. First of all, in terms of some of the, I want to say booths, I'm not sure if that's the proper terminology, but the exhibits, if you will, especially geared towards women, you know, anywheres from, you know, bone density, you know, to blood pressure clinics, domestic violence. We'll have, I think, people dealing with yoga, proper eating, and just about everything and anything to do with health. But actually, I should say, although it's called the Health Forum, there are a lot of exhibits there that pertain both to
Men and women.
men and women. And probably the biggest issue, probably the biggest item at all that people should remember is they can get a free flu shot there. You know, I was recently at the opening of the PACE, so-called PACE facility for senior citizens that we have in Winthrop that just opened up in Revere, and I told them I thought that at one time that that was probably I was the biggest draw for the event, but I think it's the flu shots that is. And this year we have a special guest, and Emily Reamer from Channel 5 who will come in. I think she's also the medical reporter for Channel 5 as well. And we also have the doctor who serves on the Winthrop Board of Health who will be speaking as well. So a lot of good exhibits and a lot of interesting talk and people to ask questions of
Now,
in
I
terms
hate
of
to
their
cut you
health
short.
concerns.
We have a few minutes left, a few seconds left, I should say.
Okay.
So why don't you
Again,
tell
this-
everyone when the forum is and how to get in touch with you?
Okay, the forum is October 10th, and as they can reach my office at 617-722-2500. They can not only reach my office relative to when the forum is, but most importantly, you know, of any issues that may have. Again, it's 617-722-2500.
Now, Bob, thank you again for the show.
Thank you.
hope
I
it's
think I
been,
felt like I spoke very, very quickly. We
You
had so
did,
much
you
to
did.
talk about.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.